Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about special organelle that is present in the cell. So what are the special organelle that is present in the cell? Look at the cell. In the cell there are many organelles. For example, some nucleus are present, and from the nucleus the ER is present, and then the Golgi are present, and then some ribosomes are present here. The ribosome present in the cytosol is called as the cytoplasmic ribosome, and some ribosome are also present on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or that's why it is called as the rough endoplasmic reticulum, because in the special part of the endoplasmic reticulum here. So here some ribosomes are also present. So these ribosomes are called as the membrane bound ribosome, or which membrane? That is the ER membrane. So this is called as the membrane bound ribosome. This is the ribosome. Some are called as the lysosome are also present. Some vacuoles are also present. Peroxisome. There are the many different organelles are present inside the cell. So what are the special organelles? So special organelles means, for example, a vacuole. A vacuole contains single membrane bound organelle, or it is called as a single membrane bound organelle. Why it is called as a single membrane bound organelle? Because let's suppose this is the vacuole and it is surrounded by only one plasma membrane or the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane. So it is surrounded by the single cell membrane. But some organelles are also present which is surrounded by the two membranes. For example, the mitochondria. The mitochondria has the two membrane. That means one membrane is called as the outer membrane and another is called as the inner membrane. That means it is surrounded by the two membrane or the two plasma membrane. So that's why the mitochondria is also called as the double membrane bound organelle. Double membrane bound organelle. So besides the mitochondria, one is the mitochondria, the chloroplast of the cell is also a double membrane bound organelle. That means in the chloroplast also they have two membranes. One is the outer membrane, another is the inner membrane, and one is the nucleus. So that means in the nucleus also two membranes are present. So that means these three structures, that means mitochondria, chloroplast, nucleus. So they are the different organelles or the special organelles. Why? Because these three have two membranes that are present outside the organelle. So that's why the mitochondria, chloroplast and the nucleus, they are called as the double membrane bound organelle, and all other organelles, for example ER, Golgi, lysosome, vacuole, so they all are the single membrane bound organelle. So today we will discuss about some double membrane bound organelles. So first come to a very special structure or a special organelle, that is called as the mitochondria. Now this is the mitochondria structure. So mitochondria, it is a plural term. So that means if many mitochondria are present, then it is called as the mitochondria. There is no mitochondria. There is no term about the mitochondria, because mitochondria is itself, it is a plural. So if single mitochondria is taken, then it is called as mitochondrion. So mitochondrion is a singular term. That means a single mitochondria is called as the mitochondrion, while more than one mitochondrion are present, and then it is called as the mitochondria. Okay. So now come to about some history. That means who discovered the mitochondria. So Benda, Benda, Benda in 1898, he discovered the mitochondria and they coined the term the mitochondria. This term was coined by the Benda. And mitochondria is sometimes it is also called as the parabasal bodies, or it is also called as the chondrism, or sometimes it is also called as the plasmosome. So there are the different names of the mitochondria. That means the parabasal bodies and the chondrisome or the plasmosome. So that means they are also the mitochondria. That means they are the different terms of the mitochondria we used, but mostly we use the term mitochondria. So the mitochondria is present in all the cells except prokaryote and mature RBC. That means the prokaryotes and the mature RBC, they don't have the mitochondria structure or the mitochondria. Please note that it is very, very important and it is most usual NEET question. That means in the RBC which structure is present or which organelles are present. So always the mature RBC is absent in the RBC. It is very many times it is asked in the NEET exam that which organelles lack in the RBC, and the answer will be the mature RBC. And beside the mature RBC, prokaryotes also, they don't have this mitochondria structure. So if we go to the structure or the shape is sausage or cylindrical. The sausage it looks like this. It is a stuffed meat structure. So the mitochondria, look at the structure. It looks like exactly the sausage or the cylindrical shape of the mitochondria. So the number, if we look about the number of the mitochondria, it varies based on the different types of the physiological activities by the different types of the cell. For example, one algae is present, that is called the microsterias. It is a algae and it contains only one mitochondria. That means a single mitochondria is present in the microsterias, that is the algae. For example, in the human, the liver cell contains nearly 500 mitochondria, while the kidney contains 500 to 1000 mitochondria. So the number varies according to the physiological activities by the cell. So if we look at the diameter, so this is the length, this is the diameter. So the diameter is 0.2 to 1 micrometer. Micrometer means 1 micrometer is equal to 10 to the power minus 6 meter. So the diameter is 0.2 to 1 micrometer and the length is 1 to 4.1 micrometer. This is the length and this is the diameter of the mitochondria. And the mitochondria, it is not visible easily in the compound microscope. That means the mitochondria is seen in the higher magnification, That means in the compound microscope, as it is present in the laboratory, in the compound microscope it is not seen. It is seen only in the higher magnification. And the mitochondria is also called as the semi-autonomous organelle. Semi-autonomous organelle. Why it is called as the semi-autonomous organelle? It is very, very important. Why it is called as the semi-autonomous organelle? So what is the difference between the autonomous organelle? What is the semi-autonomous? Semi means not fully, that is called as the semi. Autonomous means it doesn't depend on other cells. So that means, look at the structure of the mitochondria. It contains a special structure here like this, and this structure is called as the DNA. The DNA. That means the mitochondria also contains a DNA. That means, for example, the ER doesn't have any DNA structure. For example, the Golgi have no DNA, but the mitochondria has a DNA structure. That means, if in the cell, let's say it is the nucleus, in the nucleus a DNA is present. How many DNA? 46 or 23 pairs DNA are present. So in the, let's say this is the mitochondria. The mitochondria also contains a DNA, but this DNA is different from the DNA present in the nucleus. What is the difference? So the DNA present in the mitochondria is circular one, circular and double stranded. Look, it means it looks like this. It is a double stranded. This is the one strand, this is the another strand, and it is the circular. But in the nucleus, the DNA is linear and double stranded. That means in the nucleus, the DNA is looks like this. That means it is the linear and double stranded. While in the mitochondria, the DNA is circular and the double stranded, and single DNA means one DNA is present in the mitochondria. So because of the presence of the DNA, and along with that some ribosomes are also present. This is the ribosome. So that means the ribosome is present, and the ribosome helps in the synthesis of the protein. That means the DNA is present, the ribosome is present. So that means this mitochondria also can synthesize its own protein. That means in the other cell, for example, this is the ER. The ER forms the protein, and this protein goes to either to the lysosome or to the peroxisome or to the vacuole. So all the proteins that are required in the different organelles, that are synthesized only in the ER. But it is the mitochondria. The mitochondria contains the DNA, and it synthesizes its own protein. That means it does not depend upon the ER for the protein part. So that's why it is called the semi-autonomous. It is not fully autonomous. Why it is fully autonomous? Because it contains only the ribosome and the DNA, but all means besides the protein, all other compounds or the other molecules, and for this it depends upon the other organelles. So that's why it is called the semi-autonomous organelles. Okay, so now look at the division. That means, let's say this is the mitochondria. This is the mitochondria. How it divides or how it doubles? So it divides by a binary fission. Binary fission. That means from one it forms to two same like structure or same mitochondrial like structure. So that means always important that mitochondria divides by the binary fission. So now look at the structure of the organelle or the structure of the mitochondria. Look at the structure of the mitochondria. This is the structure of the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the double membrane bound structure. That means one is called as the outer membrane. So this is the outer membrane. So another layer is called as the, here it is called as the inner membrane. The outer membrane is smooth, that means it is present like straight, but the inner membrane, it forms a infolding or it moves inside it, that is called as the infolding, and this infolding structure is called as crista. Crista. Please important, the crista is the singular term, singular. If more than one crista if we say, then it is called as the cristae, and the cristae is the plural term. Okay, so what is the crista? Crista is the simply the infolded structure of the inner membrane. Look at this structure. So this is the inner membrane, the infolded structure. This is called as the cristae. This is called as the cristae. This is called as the cristae. So why the cristae is important? Because inside the cristae, or the cristae provides the surface area, or it increases the surface area. What is the surface area? Look this structure. Let's suppose this inner membrane, if it will goes like this, so that means this much of distance covers, but when it infolds inside it, or when it goes to the inside, the distance is from here to here, that means nearly 3 times more than that. So that's why the infolding of the crista, it increases the surface area. So this is the outer membrane, this is the inner membrane, and the infolding part is called as the crista. So this middle part, that means between the outer membrane and the inner membrane, this space or this space, and this space is called as the perimitochondrial space. Perimitochondrial space. So this is the outer membrane, this is the inner membrane, this is the crista, and the difference of the space between the outer and the inner membrane is called as the perimitochondrial space, and the inside it, here this part is called as the matrix. Okay, so that means here it is the outer membrane, this is the inner membrane, this is the cristae part, and the space between the outer and the inner, this structure is called as the perimitochondrial space, and the inside it, here this part, this inside part is called as the matrix. Okay, this is very important. So now come to the crista part. So the crista or the inside part, let's suppose this is the outer membrane, this is the inner membrane. So outer membrane contains the many enzymes of the proteins, and the inner membranes also contains the many enzymes. But in the inner membrane, the important enzymes are present in the inner membrane on the surface of this inner surface. So this is called as the crista, and it contains, look at this structure, these are called as the respiratory enzymes. What is the respiratory enzyme, or what is the function of the respiratory enzymes? For example, it actually, the respiratory enzyme, it forms the energy, or it creates the energy, or it creates or generates the ATP. How the ATP is formed? By the oxidation of carbohydrate and fat. What is the oxidation of carbohydrate? What is the fat? Look at the structure. For example, a glucose is present. Okay, the glucose is converted to pyruvic acid, or the pyruvate, and this process is called as the glycolysis. Always please remember that this glycolysis always it occurs in the cytoplasm. Okay, so in the cytoplasm the pyruvate is formed, and once the pyruvate is formed, it goes to the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle occurs in the matrix of mitochondria. So that means one glucose is converted to 2 pyruvate, and now this pyruvate enters into the matrix part, that means the inside here, the inside part, and in the matrix the Krebs cycle occurs. So after entering this pyruvate into the mitochondria, so now in the membrane there are many respiratory enzymes are present, and these respiratory enzymes creates or forms the ATP or adenosine triphosphate. So ATP by the oxidation of this carbohydrate, that means glucose, fructose, these are the many carbohydrates. So it forms the ATP. So that's why the mitochondria is also called as the powerhouse of cell, because it creates or it generates the energy in the form of the ATP. So look at the structure. What are the respiratory enzymes? Let's suppose this structure, if I will zoom this, then it looks like this structure. That means this is the crista, and the crista different, this green structure are present, and they are called as the respiratory enzyme, which helps in the ATP formation. And along with this green structure, a yellow structure is present, and it is a very important structure. And if I zoom this, it looks like this, and this is called as the oxygen, or this is also called as the F0, F1 particle, or it is also called as the elementary particle. So why it is called as the oxygen, or the F0, F1 particle, or the elementary particle? So F0, F1, that means this top structure, this is called as the base, or it is called as the F0 part, and this round like structure, the head part, is called as the F1. So that's why it is called as the F0, F1 particle, or because a stalk is present, it is also called as a stalked particle. So what is the role of this oxygen? Because actually there are different types of the respiratory enzyme, and this oxygen is also a one type of respiratory enzyme, but this oxygen actually it forms the ATP. That means the respiratory enzyme forms the ATP, But out of all the respiratory enzyme, actually at the end the oxygen forms the ATP. All other respiratory enzyme helps in the generation of the ATP, but the oxygen part, it forms or it generates the ATP. So that's why the oxygen or F0 F1 particle is very important, because it creates or generates the ATP, and that's why the mitochondria is also called as the powerhouse of the cell. So because this oxygen or the oxygen, it also forms the ATP, and the ATP is formed with the, let's suppose this is a F0 F1 particle and the oxygen is present, so it generates the ATP. So now enzyme is present that is called as ATP synthase. So what is the role of the synthase? So the role of the ATP synthase means the ATP generates, that means this enzyme generates the ATP. So now the oxygen exactly it has the same role like the ATP synthase. So that means in the NEET exam it is also asked that which enzyme resembles the oxygen, and the answer will be the ATP synthase, because the role of the ATP synthase is to generate the ATP. The role of the oxygen is also the generation of the ATP. So that's why the role of the oxygen resembles the enzyme, the ATP synthase. Okay, so this is all about the mitochondria structure.